Well, hello there.
We're back.
Welcome. Welcome to us being back. It's Outside the Cinema, your weekly source for cult movie discussions. We're your hosts. I'm Bill. That's Chris. Say hello. Chris.
Yeah.
Say hello.
Hello, it's me. I'm looking for a pencil tip. I usually don't say a lot at this part of the show.
I know, but I wanted you to say hi to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. How's everyone doing? What's going on? Everyone doing good? I hope so. We are in the rainy season in Massachusetts here, where it rains every day.
I hate this.
Oh, it sucks, dude. We are already so obviously everyone knows my son plays a lot of baseball, and season was supposed to start like 2 weeks ago. Haven't played yet.
Not at all? Wow.
A couple practices, but both the games have been canceled. So,
only 2. Okay, that's not terrible, but still, that's more than you want.
Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's one of those things where baseball in Massachusetts or in the Northeast in general is like we try to start right around April 1st, but like every year, most of your early season games get canceled because of weather.
Yeah.
So then it's like the season needs to end by like the time the kids get out of school. So like you can't, not even like, oh, we'll just extend it later or whatever.
Yeah,
like
because you still got 13 games left that were canceled.
I know, right? Yeah. My favorite is Travis plays club baseball, and my favorite is when games get canceled and then they don't make them up.
Yeah.
But yet I still paid the same amount of money.
Ooh, yeah.
Same amount of money for him to play 30 odd games when they actually only play like 18.
That's
annoying.
Yeah.
What it is. Speaking of annoying, our patrons. No, I'm kidding. Patreon shows have been going well for the most part. I think we haven't necessarily had A+ films across the board, but we've had some really interesting discussions, and I think we're going to be able to get 2 really good discussions in today too with Donnie's picks. He chose 2 films for us to review. Again, if you're not a member of our Patreon, I would recommend doing it. If you like the show and you like to support us, all of the money that we generate through our Patreon goes back into keeping the show alive, paying for hosting fees, paying for equipment if it needs to be replaced, paying for software that needs to be updated, whatever we need. That's where we have a bank of money to be able to go to there.
Yeah.
So if you would like to join and if you're not already a member, and I think a lot of our regular listeners are all members, but if you ever want to join and help out the show or do a one-time donation or anything like that, you can do that through Patreon too. You can go to patreon.com/outside the cinema. This week's patron of choice is Donnie D. Wanted to float some movies out there for you guys to cover. I did a search on Libsyn, but it only goes back to 2013. I'm holding off picking newer movies like Companion and The Monkey because there is not a significant price. There is not insignificant price to viewing them.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay.
Yes. So if publicly you can only go back to 2013 on Libsyn. If you are a Patreon member, though, you get access to our show archives, and you can go all the way back to episode 1. But the issue there is, we weren't good with putting what we were covering every week early on there, until we started using the titles of the episodes to say what the movies were. Right. And we didn't do that. We used to just kind of make up funny titles for the first couple of years. And also I was really bad with show notes. And we've also changed services like 3 or 4 different times. So some of those notes came through, some of them didn't. Some of the titles came through, some of them didn't. So somebody was making a master list for us at some point, and they just stopped updating it.
Right. Gandalf.
Was it Gandalf?
Yeah. Because of course I'm going to remember that name, right? So.
Yeah, so I think there's a partial list on Letterboxd, if I'm not
But it would be the ones before the ones that they're talking about. So it'd be the lost, quote unquote, lost titles.
Maybe.
Right?
Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know.
Could be. We'll have to look. I don't know much about the thing I do every week.
No, me either. I'm a sucker for werewolf movies and cannot remember if you guys have ever covered Silver Bullet or not. We have not.
No.
It has some of Corey Haim's best acting in it. For Italian movies, there's no way you guys haven't covered either Tenebrae or Pieces, but if you haven't, please do so. I do believe we had covered both of them, but it had been quite a while since I've seen Tenebrae. And I thought that would be a good one to revisit.
Yeah.
Because it is considered Argento's return to form.
Yeah, it's one of those rare, I'm going to come back and do the thing I'm famous for, and it works.
Correct.
It doesn't always happen that way.
I'm not saying it's a great film, but it works for the
But it's not the card player. So there you go.
Oh my God, no. What was the other one? Stendhal Syndrome? Was that the one that was okay? Was Stendhal Syndrome the one that was like, all right?
That was the one where he had his daughter constantly naked and hurting herself. Right?
That doesn't. It doesn't.
Was that Asia? That right? Asia Argento.
Yeah. I mean, she was in a bunch of stuff. So anyway, those are.
I mean, she appears. I don't know if we could say that she's in it. I mean, she doesn't really act. So it's she's there.
She is there. That is true. These are Donnie's picks. Thank you, Donnie, for being a supporter. Donnie's been a supporter of the show for a number of years. We really appreciate you sticking around and helping to keep the show alive. And if you'd like to help keep the show alive, consider joining the Patreon.
Hey, can I tell you something I found out about a movie I sort of didn't like?
Sure.
Okay. So there's this movie called Dashcam that deals with this MAGA asshole bitch, MAGA, not mega, who flees the United States to go and go over to the UK at the beginning of lockdown. And basically it turns in, she runs a, for anybody that hasn't seen it, she does a freestyle rap, hip hop song making in the car. Her patrons would like give her some words and anyway, doesn't matter. She's a fucking asshole through the whole movie. And I couldn't figure out, I'm like, what is the point of having such a dick? Like, I get it. Americans are assholes, especially the red state ones. But then I read a sentence, like I say, kids, one sentence can clear up everything. And he said, I thought it would be really funny to make a horror movie where the main character does not want to fucking be there at all. They want to be in a totally different movie. And then I watched it with that in mind, and it's brilliant that way. So
yeah, I like that movie.
I had a hard time with it at first, but the idea behind the quote unquote monster, I like that. That was real clever.
The quote unquote monster.
Yeah, because I'm not going to tell you if it's a real monster or not, or if there is a monster. So,
sure. I mean, it could be all of these things.
Oh, and the director also said it's kind of like with Sean, the Deadstream. It's sort of like that. And the director said, if you watch the chat figures it out way before the characters do. I'm like, oh, okay. So now I got to watch the movie twice. All right, go fuck yourself. I will. I'll watch it 3 times just to spite you. Anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I thought that'd be
for sure.
A fun thing. Yeah.
Cool. All right, let's get into these. Do you have a preference which one we start with?
No, actually, no, not really.
All right. Well, we'll start with Silver Bull because strangely enough, Chris said that he thought he might have never actually seen it.
Yeah.
Why is this not connected? I checked before we started to make sure it was connected, and it said that it was.
Yeah, and then it disconnected because it knew you needed it connected. So that's how it works, right?
Yep. Apparently. Apparently. All right, there we go. Quick fix this time, at least.
Good.
It began in May. And every month after that, whenever the moon was full, it happened again. And again.
What was that? It's over there. Don't point that at me.
Nobody knew who or what was responsible.
Come on.
They only knew it had to be stopped. Now, from the master of mystery and suspense, Stephen King's Silver Bullet. Silver Bullet, the last glimmering hope.
Okay,
Jesus,
1985.
The last glimmering hope.
I mean, but you want to talk about classic 80s trailers. I mean, that
100%. Yeah.
like they don't make them like that anymore. And
No.
we've said that many, many times over the years. But Silver Bullet 1985, based on the Stephen King story Cycle of the Werewolf, starring Corey Haim, Gary Busey, Everett McGill, and Megan Follows. All right. First, have you ever read Cycle of the Werewolf?
No. I've seen the pages, as you flip through books, but I didn't read it. And but I do know that it's not a typically written story.
What do you mean by typically written?
Isn't it? And I could be thinking of the wrong thing, but isn't it just like entries for dates as the year goes on?
Yeah. Its narrative is told through almost like diary entries.
Yeah, Dracula style, we could say.
Yeah.
Okay.
Similar.
Yeah, that was the big difference I noticed between them, is that it's like a wildlife ranger just being like, okay, werewolves are out today.
So this is directed by Daniel Arias. He is best known for doing a lot of TV work. He directed a bunch of episodes of Alias, The Wire, Big Love, stuff like that. In terms of his features, Silver Bullet is really kind of his crowning achievement, I guess. 80s and mid 80s Stephen King adaptations are, hold a special place in the heart for a lot of horror movie fans, I feel, especially guys our age, guys and gals our age, because they were a lot of the stuff that was available in video stores in the early 90s when we were kind of really coming into getting into horror films, getting into genre cinema. And Silver Bullet is one of those that is firmly in there. And I am really quite surprised that you'd never seen it before. Looking at it in that context.
Yeah, when I was little, the only werewolf movie I liked was An American Werewolf in London, because I kind of thought when I was younger, not now, but when I was younger, that the standing up wearing pants and a t-shirt werewolf is goofy. So David's transformation into this hellhound was like, that's fucking scary. That's a dog that would scare anybody. Good. And then years went on, and then I watched Waxwork, and I saw the werewolf basically from The Howling, and I'm like, okay, all right, maybe I was wrong about werewolves. And then this one, it's like, what's a kid in a wheelchair going to do? Oh, the wheelchair's called the Silver Bullet? Fuck, you better not kill that fucking werewolf with his wheelchair, because I'm just going to be pissed. And then I didn't watch it because Gary Busey's in it, making little Corey Haim ride around on a trike with no helmet. Surprise. And it's like, And also, like there was a string of bad Stephen King movies around the time Thinner and Sleepwalkers had come out.
Which is early 90s.
Yeah. Pet Sematary fucking killed it. And then they're like, let's just shit some stuff out now.
Well, and I feel a lot of the early stuff, like Children of the Corn, I think Silver Bullet's in there, even Carrie to a point, Cujo, that run kind of set the bar pretty high. And I think at that time, a lot of the Stephen King mid-tier stories just weren't as strong. Sleepwalkers is just not a strong story.
Well, I mean, you have lizard werewolves afraid of cats in an incest family. That's a hard sell.
Yeah. Again, like I just said, not a great story.
But it could have been, right? It could have been. Alice Creed was in it, and she was really good.
No, but I'm just talking the source material. I think a lot of the stuff that after they got through your Pet Cemeteries and your Cujos and those real he didn't have as many, his continued to write books hand over fist for years.
Oh yeah.
So obviously they're not going to all hit. So it was kind of one of those things where maybe you just don't adapt every Stephen King movie, every Stephen King work because you can.
Yeah, and if you're going to adapt Stephen King, what you really need to do is stick to the story. Not going to talk about that movie, but we all know which one I'm talking about.
Yep, stick to the story and save the ending, because one thing that we can all agree with Stephen King is he doesn't always stick the landing in his books.
No. Let me give you a good example, because I have to say something about this.
Sure.
Right? So we can have 1,100 pages of it, and it can be disturbing, gross, there's all kinds of assault in there. The clown does weird stuff. The reality bending powers of Pennywise are easier written than produced on screen, and it's all great, and they defeat Pennywise, and they're gonna survive, and they can contact each other in 20. Let's all fuck. We're teenagers. Let's all fuck in this monster cave that we just fought an interdimensional being in. The fuck, Steve? Come on. That's what I think when fucked up the landing, not the mist where it's like, oh well, they're okay, but then like Frank Darabont comes along and he's like, fuck this shit, I'm gonna scar people, and then you do that. That's how you do a fucking ending. But I will give Stephen King this: he does poke fun at himself for not being able to write an ending.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
Yeah, his meandering endings are a thing of beauty sometimes. Which is why The Stand is as long as it is.
Oh,
Anyway, so Silver Bullet, though, definitely I think holds a place for nostalgia for a large number of horror movie fans. It's one of the ones that people will go back to. You know, obviously Gary Busey and Corey Haim are two guys that became big stars, and then obviously had troubled histories. Corey Haim obviously passing away a number of years ago now at this point, but you know, we met Corey a number of times, 3 or 4 times over the years.
Yeah.
Was always very nice to us, was very friendly. Never did an interview, but was a good dude. Despite, you know, like not wanting to necessarily do stuff, but like was always very friendly and very personable. So when he passed away, it was, although not a huge surprise, still very sad.
Yeah. He seemed like, just the way he portrayed himself on screen and interviews, he just seemed like the nicest guy.
Yeah.
Demons. I don't know.
Never
but
got
he
past
always,
the demons.
Yeah, he always looked like he had a smile for everybody. I don't know. It's those people die. And the beady-eyed ghouls just stay around.
Never gonna die. Never
They will.
gonna die.
They will.
Anyway, so getting back to Silver Bullet, though. This is young Corey Haim, 85. Not his first film, but one of his earlier films. And he plays the character of Marty, who is in a wheelchair, he's unable to walk. And his uncle, Gary Busey, played by Gary Busey. Uncle Red builds him these basically motor-operated wheelchairs that ride like dirt bikes or whatever.
Yeah.
Jane is the sister. The mother and father are there, but they're kind of absent. The father especially is very absent. Like, it's kind of a very weird parental thing, because the mother comes in and yells at Gary Busey's character. He's like, oh, you know, you're drunk and you come in here and you give Marty all these options and make him happy, and then you disappear and then you come back. But like the father is just never there, which I thought is so strange, because he only shows up like they're in the car and the sister is complaining because, as any sister, you know, she's supposed to be like, she's probably supposed to be like 15 or so. And Corey Haim's probably supposed to be about 12. She has to help because he's in a wheelchair and he can't walk. So she's always having to help, and she's mad because she always has to help, and they always take his side. And like, it's a very, it's not a bizarre, thing for somebody to feel that way.
I'm going to be honest. I do actually notice myself going easier on the kid I have with diabetes than the kid that doesn't.
Right. Yeah.
And I have to catch myself. But it's subtle stuff. It's not like glaringly movie obvious. It's like, if I tell one kid to do this, you got to tell both of them an equal kind of thing. But it's like, well, her number's really high, so we're going to. But yeah, no, it's easy to do. And if you have a visual illness, instead of the hidden ones, like 90% of the people out there,
right.
It's a lot easier to remember, oh shit, yeah, that person needs help, or I need to give them 10 minutes just to whatever. Or, no, it's like help the dude up the stairs.
Right.
But yeah, that's resentment. That'll lead to resentment. And in a King movie, you're gonna fast track that to create conflict.
So there's been a bunch of murders in the town. They don't know exactly what's going on, but they seem very brutal. There's some talk maybe it's a wild animal. We don't really know what's going on. And the town basically is, fearful because everybody getting murdered.
Yeah, that's a problem.
Everybody getting torn up.
Yeah.
And it's like not even like a thing where like anyone's kind of safe anywhere. Like, because this whatever's happening is going into people's houses. It's going into their greenhouses or like. So they do the thing that they do in every town. They blame Terry O'Quinn, who plays the sheriff, of not doing his job. He institutes and this always cracks me up whenever they institute, a curfew.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we're instituting a curfew at sundown, and like everybody like always like runs into their houses like as at sundown, but like and they like look around like they're looking for something, and it's like oh
they don't know
we're
what
not
to do.
inside the house, and something bad's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Very funny.
The actors don't know what to do.
They're just
like it's not the moon's not up. I don't know how to act scared of a werewolf that's not here yet,
or that we don't know exists.
Yeah, they have no idea.
It's always funny that, but I mean, every movie where they institute like a curfew at sundown, it's like that. Everyone's like, "Oh, the sun's starting to go down." They have to like run to their houses.
Yep.
One of Marty's friends gets killed because he does not go home. Apparently, despite the fact that like everyone else is running crazy. And so you get your mob mentality. Everyone local in the town owns a rifle, and they're all going to go out and they're gonna stop whatever's happening. They're going to get this guy, as they say.
Yep, we're gonna go Frankenstein mob this place.
Now, it's funny because you hadn't seen this before, and like I don't necessarily want to like go full spoilers on it, but like I kind of feel like we kind of have to.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen Silver Bullet yet, if you're a weirdo like Chris and you've done a cult movie podcast for 17 years and you haven't seen Stephen King's Silver Bullet.
To be fair, as of 2008, I hadn't seen Silver Bullet. I came on the show and I'm like, I got to stop watching movies.
We'll get to it eventually.
Exactly.
That should be our tagline. Listen, you're listening to Outside the Cinema. We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, I like that.
So if you haven't seen it, we're going to give away. I mean, it's not really super well hidden who the werewolf is. They do an okay job of it for the majority of the film.
Long enough for me to say one sentence, and I'll know the right time that I can say that after we get past a point.
Right. So you got the reverend from the church trying to stop everybody. Don't go out. It's your people are going to get hurt. Blah 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 blah. And of course, people get hurt.
Well, I mean,
they go out into the woods, and again, another thing, just kind of like it's such a trope of like they're out in the woods, and there just happens to be a really dense hanging fog.
Oh man,
that goes like 3 feet up off the ground. Again, something else I've never seen when I've been out in the woods.
That's some Scooby-Doo shit right there.
Yeah. But it's a great scene because they're out there and they hear the growling and they're like, what the hell is going on? And then this werewolf starts attacking these people, but they never see it because it's under the fog.
Yeah.
Very effective. Very effective.
Yeah. And then you read a little bit into the trivia and you find out that they wanted to emulate the feel of Jaws, which I looked up after my wife said, yeah, this feels like Jaws. Like, you know what? It does. But that's okay. I mean, Jurassic Park
works. Yeah, it works.
2 or 3 or whatever did it with the raptors in the field. Predators did it with the samurai in the field. It happens in fields. So, yeah, but this wasn't a field. This was a swamp, so it's different.
Yeah, it was very effective.
It was. It was some good fog. Probably gave everybody cancer. I don't live on a swamp,
so I can't say. I've never seen fog actually like that. Like it's always foggy everywhere in films, but like I very rarely see fog in real life.
Yeah.
So now they know, a couple people get killed there, and we keep seeing the funerals and the reverend's, doing the funerals, and he has a nightmare where he's doing a funeral and everyone inside the funeral turns into a werewolf.
Yeah.
So the werewolf is terrorizing everybody. And again, there's like people are getting killed, but yet Corey Haim, who can't walk, manages to sneak out of his house in the middle of the night.
Of course.
To shoot off fireworks given to him by Gary Busey.
I mean, there is nothing about that sentence that doesn't add up.
No, I mean, it all makes sense until you watch it and you're like, why is this kid, why? First of all, his friend got killed.
Yeah.
And he still goes out to the middle of nowhere and shoots fireworks off a dilapidated bridge.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, he's auditioning for Troll Hunter.
Yeah, right. Needless to say, the werewolf tracks him down.
Yeah.
And he shoots the werewolf in the eye with a firecracker.
Right.
Damaging the eye of the werewolf.
Yes.
Now, this is
which is different. It is different than Eye of the Tiger. It's the Eye of the Werewolf.
It is very different than the Eye of the Tiger.
Yep.
Not nearly as inspiring.
He's not going to stand up to the challenge of his rivals. He's just going to kill them.
Yeah. So at this point now, we're trying to figure out who the werewolf is by who has an injured eye.
Well, I mean, you could be figuring out who the werewolf is if you don't already know.
Yeah. So they go around town. The sister's now on board with helping because she's figured out that he's being serious. And she goes to a bunch of places to try to figure out who's got an injured eye. And lo and behold, here's the spoiler in case you don't know already. The Reverend Lowe is the werewolf.
Yes.
She goes to his house to drop off the cans that she's been collecting, and he's got his eye all covered up with gauze.
Yep.
And in case you weren't paying any attention earlier in the film, I mean, it's very obvious that he's the werewolf because he's a scary fucking looking dude.
Well,
he's menacing at every point you see him.
Let's clue people in that haven't seen this yet. It's Everett McGill. Okay.
Yep.
Everett McGill is the dad, quotes, dad from The People Under the Stairs. When he came on screen, and he was like being nice to people, I said, oh, it's really nice to see him actually not be a menacing fucking creep for once in a movie. He's really good at that, but it's nice to see another. Oh, wait, he's the werewolf. That's how long it took me.
Yep. And as you get further into the film, he gets more and more menacing.
I love him. He's
not even as the werewolf,
actor.
just as the Reverend. Like he stopped shaving, so he's got like a real thick, like 5 o'clock shadow. He's got the eye patch on.
The eye patch was great. Yeah.
Oh man, super effective. Legitimately.
Yeah.
I mean, his role in People Under the Stairs is pretty creepy, but this is like most effective creepo role I've seen. Maybe ever. It might be one of the most. It's one of the best. And it's brilliant casting because when he's doing like his Reverend stuff and he's like fire and brimstoning, it works really well. But then you're like, oh yeah, but this guy's a fucking creep.
Yeah, he's like a statue up there. He's stone strong, and it's amazing. Like to see him just do that, because it's like, he would scare the entire town and they would all believe that he is looking to keep them safe. So he's in the perfect spot because he's in Hicksville, USA, which is Maine, apparently this time. But I don't know. It is perfect. Like the only person that I can think of that holds a candle to what he could do on screen is I just had his fucking name in my head. Michael Shannon.
Oh yeah.
He's like, if you could go down the list and you could be like handsome actors and you could go James Dean, Brad Pitt, blah, blah, blah. It's the same look, right? I get the same creep factor from those two guys. And I like it because I know why they were hired.
Yeah, for sure.
So I know what to expect. It's a lot of fun. Yeah.
So now, obviously, the Reverend knows that the brother and sister know that he's the werewolf. So he's got to take them out so that they don't tell anyone.
And the way she went around town was the smartest thing I've ever seen a kid do.
Very good. Yeah.
She's collecting cans and bottles to give to the Reverend. And that way she actually can hit everybody because you go drop them off. And she sees the eye patch. She sort of believes him, Corey Haim, but then she uncovers the bat. The broken part of the bat that the werewolf used in the swamp to beat people up. It's not as cool as my bat over here that I use for fascists, but it was a good bat. His had a word carved in it. Mine doesn't, but that's all right.
I like to think that it was the bat from the Robert Redford film, The Natural.
Yes, The Natural.
I like to think it said Wonder Boy on it or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, man. That'd be a great crossover.
Yeah, so they've done a really good job of building your anticipation. You know that the guy's a creep and he's chasing Corey around town, and you think he's going to get him, and then Corey's able to escape by getting help from somebody, and it just really works out. So they go to Gary Busey, which again, I mean, suspend belief. Again, this is Gary Busey, 1985. We didn't know quite how insane he was at the time.
No, I looked it up just so I could be 100% fair to the man. His accident wasn't until 88. Yeah. So he hadn't done any of he was riding motorcycles without helmets at this time, but he hadn't had that life-changing accident at this point. So I rescind my former joke about brain damage.
Fair enough. So they go to Gary Busey. He obviously doesn't believe them, but they're so insistent that like they need to do something. And so he goes to the police, and then the thing that really gets him on board is that the police chief, played by Terry O'Quinn, who was Lost among other things.
He's a
the
great
originals.
actor too.
Yeah, he's awesome. He was the stepfather in The Stepfather.
Yeah, he's got a real authority in this role. Like he not like, oh, he's a cop, he's got authority. Like you believe that people respect his opinion.
Exactly.
Which is weird. It's a weird thing
until they don't listen anymore because they're so scared. It actually
fear kills everything. Fear is the mind killer.
So Gary Busey's character Red goes to him and he's like, "Hey, listen, you gotta." He's like, so Terry Quinn, the police chief, he's just kind of like, "Do you believe this?" And he's like, I believe that you got to take a look at the Reverend."
That's fair. Yeah.
And that's exactly what Terry Quinn is like. All right, cool. Yeah, I'll check it out. So he goes to his house, of course, in the dead of night. Like he goes to his house in the dead of night, as opposed
what
to
better chance to find a werewolf?
Right. And then he disappears because he gets got.
Yeah.
And then the next morning they're talking to Red and they're like, "Listen, like you go to the guy that's going to, the police, and they're going to check into it, and now he's missing. You know that something's wrong." And he's like, "All right." So they each give him their silver pendants to turn them into silver bullets, because that's how you kill. That's how you kill the werewolf. So you get the silver bullet, and then you get the silver bullet, which is the motorbike wheelchair that Gary Busey created for Corey Haim.
Yeah, because in the beginning of this movie, you're like, how the fuck is this kid in a little moped wheelchair gonna outrun a bipedal werewolf? And then he gets his new trike, and I'm like, oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Because it's a lot faster. Yeah.
Not sure why his parents allowed it to be a thing, but
because they're not driving his crippled ass to school. I don't know.
Apparently not. There's just so many weird little things in this movie, though, that are just kind of funny to me. The stuff funny meaning it doesn't make any sense. Like the stuff like Corey Haim going and shooting the fireworks off in the middle of the night, despite the fact that the town's on a lockdown because there's been 30 murders or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah,
or
he's just a dumb kid. He's 12, right?
Yeah, before that, they go to the town carnival, and the town carnival's canceled, and the fireworks are canceled. And they're like, "Oh, I can't believe they canceled the fireworks." And it's like, well, yes, you can. The town they're locking the town down at sundown every day. Who's going to watch the fireworks if they shoot them?
Yeah, well, all those people that ran to their windows.
Apparently, yeah. So we don't need to get into the nitty-gritty of the very end of the film, but I mean, it's done very effectively in the way that they give you a conclusion in this.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why this one has kind of stood up over time. I'm not going to say it's the strongest or the best Stephen King movie or the strongest or best horror movie from this period, but I definitely, I personally think, and maybe if you disagree with me or not, I don't know, I think it's held up very well.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I honestly feel like if you were to go with intensity of werewolf movies, this would be the first one. You could do Lon Chaney Werewolf, then this, then The Howling, then American Werewolf, I think.
What are your thoughts on the wolf and the transformation scenes and stuff in this?
Here, I thought it didn't seem like they had a lot of budget for it, and they kept it pretty hidden. And I didn't think it was that bad. I
thought it was done pretty well.
Yeah.
For what they did, I thought it was done pretty well.
Yeah.
That scene when he's had that dream scene in the church when everybody is changing into a wolf, I thought was pretty dope.
That deserved some kind of award. That was a lot of makeup for one scene. I read there were 8 principals that had all full latex on. And then, the complexity lessons as you go into the background. But there were air bladders and all kinds of stuff going on there. And I don't think when I see the movie talked about, I don't see people talking about that.
No.
But
it's kind of weird that you don't, because it's a really, really good scene.
Yeah, and it's not like they all turn into the same kind of werewolf. They're all different colors because it's sort of based off their hair color, and that's great. That's what it should be. Just a lot of really smart decisions in this. I liked it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. All right, well, let's give it a grade. All right, Chris, do you recommend, and what is your grade for Silver Bullet?
Yeah, I'm going to recommend this, but I am going to say that I do feel like this is, it's not the kids version, but it would be the OTC kids version, where you're an irresponsible parent and you show your kid movies when they're 8 years old and you really shouldn't. So me.
Yeah, I know. I get what you're saying.
It's the gore is lighter than I expected it to be. The tension is really good. It sucks you in. Corey Haim is just a likable character. And even what's his face there, Toothy McGraw. he comes off as the fun, eccentric uncle. He doesn't come off as a nut job like if Nicolas Cage was doing that role now.
Right.
So he comes off as believable. Like, hey, the kid wants to, be a little dangerous. He can't walk around. He can't ride up. He can't do anything. So let's let him do something that'll give him that thrill that other kids get. And what's gonna happen if he falls off of that motorcycle, huh?
Oh, he's dead.
What, he won't be able to walk again?
No, he'll just be dead.
Because he could be a quadriplegic. That would be way worse. But no, I that's an 80s thing. That is definitely like, oh, you can't do this? Well, here, let's give you something equivalent.
Mm.
And I had an uncle that wasn't that crazy, but like would like go out on a limb to help you, make you feel welcome or included or whatever. And you just that's how that felt. The sister and brother thing, they really did care about each other. They just like to bitch. My kids do that to each other, and it really bothers me. And I tell them, and they're like, "No, we're just kidding. You'll know when we're fighting." I'm like, "Good, but I'm gonna keep asking you till I realize that you're joking." And because they can, since they're both in stage 1 and they do drama and all that, they're getting pretty good at acting, fighting, play fighting, and it can get kind of. So I have to keep checking it, but I don't know what my point was. So yeah, I'll recommend this, and I have to say it's not the same as the other two werewolf movies from this time period. It's TV version almost. Does this feel like a TV movie in a way?
A little bit,
not in a bad way, but like. I don't know.
I think that mindset comes in with a lot of Stephen King stuff because some of his best stuff was a TV film. Like The Stand were both TV films, and so was the original Salem's Lot was a TV film. So like I think a lot of his stuff just you kind of think of it in terms of that because a lot of his stuff was done on TV.
That makes sense. But to move this along, I'll say I'll give it a B+. I had a lot of fun with it. Yeah. It's not my favorite, but I had a lot of fun with it.
Cool. I mean, I'm pretty much in agreement with you across the board. I'm definitely recommending it, especially if you're a fan of King's work or horror films from this time period, because it definitely scratches that nostalgia itch when you watch it. The look of it, the film it was shot on, it's aged well. Like everything works in terms of like your storytelling. They don't really like overdo anything. One thing I really appreciated was when they were like, well, werewolves aren't real. And then like, they're like, well, why does the werewolf, it's not even a full moon. How did he become a wolf? And the guy's like, how am I supposed to know? Like,
yeah.
And then he's like, well, how did he become a werewolf? He's like, I don't know.
Yeah. They never cover that. That's interesting. I didn't think of that.
But it's done in the right way. Because recently we've had a number of films where I'm like, I need more information here. I didn't need that information in this.
No, it's just a werewolf hiding out in a small town.
Right.
Yeah. Right. That's all you need. It didn't have any aspiration to go bigger than this small town is having a werewolf problem.
Right, exactly. So I liked it. I liked it a lot when I saw it when I was younger. It'd been a while since I revisited it, and it still scratched all the same places I expected it to. So I'm gonna give it a B+ also. It's one of the better adaptations from this time period. Like I'll go back to this before I'd go back to Cujo or before I'd go back to Graveyard Shift, Dark Half. I guess those are kind of later. Those are like early 90s, but
you know what? I've never seen Cujo.
Really?
It was released right after I was pretty badly attacked by a German Shepherd, and I did not like dogs for a very long time. So I didn't watch that.
Okay, interesting.
That's the real reason. I had a chunk taken out of my leg by a German Shepherd and dogs. Now I have dogs on it. It's fine.
Yeah, you love dogs now.
I do. I kind of always did, but they made me nervous.
I think I like Children of the Corn better than this. I got a real soft spot for that one for some reason.
Yeah,
I know
you
it's
do.
not really very good, but I love that movie.
Right?
But yeah, no, it's very solid. And in terms of like classic King stuff, it's has its place, and I definitely think you should visit it again if you haven't recently. It's available to watch on Plex currently, and it's also on was it Tube? No, it wasn't Tubi. It was
Pluto?
Paramount Plus.
I forget where I watched it.
I think it's on Pluto. And it was on Paramount Plus at one point. I don't know if it still is, but
I might
either
have
way,
watched it there. I don't know.
There you go. There you go. Okay, moving forward here. Going to go back 3 years to 1982, and we are going to do Tenebrae, which is Dario Argento's sort of return to form. I'm not going to play this whole trailer because it's got the classic 3-minute Italian trailer, but we'll give you a little bit of a taste.
Filthy, slimy pervert.
I've read all your books, Mr. Neal. The book deals with a murder committed with an old-fashioned open razor, right? This girl, too, was killed with a razor, and your book's pages stuffed into her mouth.
Can I ask you something? If someone is killed with a Smith & Wesson revolver, do you go and interview the president of Smith & Wesson?
Peter, you can't let me down now. We're within 2 days of making a deal. Please, stay just until Friday.
My life is in danger. There's no deal in the world worth risking my life for.
Not anxiety or fear, but freedom. You wrote those words, page 46. Freedom to strike again, Peter.
Listen, don't hang up. We have to talk.
You told me how, Peter Neal. You and me together. We've just begun.
All right, I'm going to cut that there because this trailer goes on for another couple of minutes. But yes, Tenebrae is a film we have discussed on the show before. We have done a review of this on the show before, but it's been a long time. It is kind of one of those classic Italian horror films that usually comes up when people talk about the best of the best. And when we talk about Argento, it's one of the ones that is not necessarily the first thing that comes up, but when you start to dig a little bit deeper, it gets mentioned very quickly because it is right up there with Deep Red and Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Suspiria and Inferno and like Opera and like the classic run of Argento.
And it's weird for something this far into this genre's life is actually this good.
Right, yeah, because this is 82. Let me just scroll down here so I get the right dates for everything. Director. Okay, so filmography. Oh man, Dark Glasses. Remember Dark Glasses a couple years ago?
Yeah, I do.
What a bummer. What a bummer.
Yeah. That one felt like it took a week to
seriously. All right, so
to watch.
When you look at Argento's run of, and we're going to just kind of look at feature films, his feature stuff here. It's 1970 with Bird with the Crystal Plumage. Cat of Nine Tails was 71.
Oh yeah.
Four Flies on Grey Velvet was also 71. All three of those, prototype giallo, beginning of the genre, all three very, very good.
Yeah.
And then we fast forward a little bit, we go to 1975, and that's when Deep Red is released, which is another classic. Suspiria, which is really his crowning achievement, I think, for a number of ways. One of my all-time favorite horror movies. That's 77. And then Inferno is in 1980 is a little bit of where there was a fall off because that's technically the second in the Three Mothers trilogy, and it's kind of a fall off. And then Tenebrae comes in 1982. So it's not as like extended. It's not like it's like 10 years removed from his really good stuff. He really only had the one falter. And Inferno, I don't even necessarily think is a falter. It's just not as strong. I mean, coming off of Suspiria, I feel like anything would probably be a falter.
Yeah.
But Tenebrae being 1982, and we're now 12 years into what he's doing, is a return to form for him. If that makes sense.
Yeah, which you can't always pull off.
No, and
no matter who you are.
The fall off in the mid to late 80s and 90s for Argento is like a cliff. So, Tenebrae is interesting though, because, all right, now we're going to discuss this film full of spoilers because we've reviewed it on the show before. And if you haven't watched it after we reviewed it once, I'm gathering that you're probably not going to watch it.
That's fair.
or you just for whatever reason. So know that if you want to know the twists and turns, and there's a couple good twists and turns in this that aren't really super predictable. So there's your warning. From this point on, anything in the story is open for discussion. Okay?
Fine with me.
All right. So the story is very simple. You have Anthony Francisco, who plays Peter Neal. Peter Neal is a horror writer. He has written a bunch of books. He's on a current book tour for his most recent novel, which is called Tenebrae. And I know that this film was very much inspired by Argento having a stalker himself. And this was kind of how he came up with this story using his personal experiences. So Peter Neal is traveling to Rome. There's now been a couple of murders that have happened with relation to him. And the relation is that the killer tore pages out of his book, stuffed them into the mouth of the person he murdered. And that's where the connection is coming.
Yes. And the one thing that pissed me off was like, would you sue the CEO of Smith & Wesson? Well, I don't know. Did he write the whole murder down on a piece of paper by himself and then publish it and somebody did it? Because, like, come on, that's not equivalent. Anyway.
No, I know exactly what you're saying, though.
But it's an argument at the time that was made to shut people up. That's exactly what that is.
Right. So he gets to Rome. The two police come to him and are like, hey, we think, what do you know? And they're like, we obviously know that you didn't do it because you just got here.
Yeah.
You just got off a plane, so we get it. But like, do you have any information? And then the killer starts calling him and giving the very generic Italian breathy.
Yeah.
I read your book.
The one thing they need to remember is if you're recording whispering, it still needs to be at a volume people can hear. Don't make it too quiet. And this almost made it too quiet in some spots. It was close.
To turn the microphone off.
Ugh. I hate that voice.
Not even loud enough. Anyway, so now Peter is involved in this. He's trying to figure out what's going on because his, reputation is at it. We also learn he's got an ex-wife that's kind of stalking him, or ex-fiance that's either stalking him or trying to exploit him or do something. It's not really fully explained exactly what has happened, but we know that there's something going on between them because he takes a phone call at the airport and is basically, you need to stop calling me. You need to leave me alone. And then someone trashes his bag.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't really end up adding much to anything. And then as the story starts to play itself out, we get some different twists and turns, whereas we have one killer doing one thing and the reasoning for it, but then all of a sudden there's this other stuff going on where you're like, well, how does this kind of work itself out? And it actually becomes a really interesting, more than a whodunit. It's more about what's the reasoning for what's actually going on here? Which is different than a lot of other giallos because most of them are very basic in terms of who's the killer.
Right.
And
the motivation is generally very clear.
Yeah, and it's usually revenge. And I mean, not that it's actually kind of revenge here too, but it's all very basic. But this one actually puts a little bit of a spin on it, which you don't get to see a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, as it plays itself out and Peter Neal is getting himself more involved and he's working with the police, but then he thinks he might be able to solve it on his own because this could work for a book here. But then things get a little bit out of control and his assistant is basically like, you should probably leave. And so he's going to fly to Paris to get out of town. But not before he and the guy that's with him, Gianni, witness the murder of the guy that runs or the guy that hosts a TV show that does an interview with Peter Neal earlier. And we see him get murdered. And then we see that Peter Neal's got knocked out and we're not really sure what's going on at this point. And then Peter Neal's like, well, I got to leave. I'm going to go to Paris or whatever.
Yeah, I'm out. My head hurts.
Twist incoming. I mean, we never see him leave.
Yeah.
They give us a stock shot of a plane flying away, but we never see him leave.
Right. No dead body, no dead person. That's how it works.
And then now the murders have changed significantly in the reasoning or why they're happening. They don't follow the pattern they were following before this. So the police are trying to figure it out, and it kind of plays itself into it. Again, final spoiler alert, Peter Neal uses a different murderer, which ended up being, he ends up killing the guy that was the original murderer, and then he uses that to try to cover up the fact that he wants to kill his ex-fiancée.
Yeah. There's a lot happening.
a lot of twists and turns. Not super but I have to say that, being an Argento fan in general, what this film does that a lot of his other films don't do is they don't muddy it. He doesn't muddy it up too much.
Yep.
It's all very, very like easy to understand what is going on. It all makes sense. The only thing that doesn't like is when Peter Neal gets bonked on the head, supposedly gets bonked on the head, and Gianni finds him like unconscious, but he obviously isn't really unconscious because we learned that he was the killer.
Right.
But like, it's like, okay, well, the timing of that is a little weird and a little hard to explain, but you know what? If that's the biggest stretch you're going to make me take, I can.
Yeah, that's not so bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've definitely seen worse. The characters in this still, they were closer, but they still didn't feel like they were scared for their lives most of the time. And that is my biggest complaint about Italian movies, is the lackadaisical preservation of your own life.
Yeah.
But it was more than in other ones we've seen, where people are like, I'm just gonna have a drink and get sloppy drunk here while there's a murdering werewolf out and the curfew's on. But no, they weren't that dumb. So it was almost like the characters came off as like, nothing bad's gonna happen to me, which is better than we're just going to ignore this problem, which is what you usually get. At least that's how it feels to me.
No, I'm gonna agree with you there. This film has all of your tropes, but does, I think, a better job with them than a lot of the other works. Not even just the Argento stuff, the Martino stuff, or like any of those guys. And it keeps, the twists and stuff all make sense. It's not that like 10th hour where like random character random character D appears for the first time and it's the twin sister of another character or a twin brother or long lost cousin or something that just kind of pops up.
I know if something like that happened in something I was watching, I'd never stop complaining about it.
But so Peter Neal really does a good, his character, we learn a little bit about, like, we keep seeing these sort of dream sequences or memories of a situation that happened to him when he was a child, of a girl teasing him and then a bunch of boys beating him up and then him going back and killing her. And it all paints itself back into, well, his fiance left him and ended up sleeping with John Saxon, who was his manager or whatever. So yeah, he had a mental break, and now but was still, with it enough to be able to, be like, oh, well, I can take advantage of this guy, this other guy who's the killer, and try to pin everything on him.
Yeah, because why not? Why wouldn't you?
And it works.
Golden opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, it works. This also has one of the most classic Claudio Cimente Goblin-esque soundtracks. One of the most memorable, one of the most famous ones. That
apparently it's the composer or whatever. They're saying the word fear in Italian over and over again. So it's kind of like a Friday the 13th, where it's part of a word or it's a heavily modified word to make up the rhythm of it, which is neat. It was a very original track, and I really like that. It's going to stick forever. Yeah.
Also, what Tenebrae offers that some of his earlier giallo works don't is the violence is turned up pretty significantly.
That's true. I had a thought while I was watching this movie. So I think, and this is just me, in the beginning of Terrifier 3, there's a woman that's killed with an axe. And it looks like that woman sustained every axe injury in... What movie are we reviewing right now?
Tenebrae.
That one. All of the axe wounds in Tenebrae were inflicted on this one woman in Terrifier 3. Cut the arm off, axe in the head, axe in the back, in the chest, 50 hits to the torso. It's like all there. And I would not be surprised if that was what they were thinking.
But yeah.
But I'm watching it and I'm like,
I think it's a definite homage for sure.
Yeah, I'm watching it and I'm like, this is just as disturbing, because some of the effects, like okay, you go into Terrifier knowing I'm going to be swimming in this whole movie in blood, but in these, the violence is there's huge portions between, and it's so fast. And the fact that this movie, the version I watched, was so well rendered or whatever like upscaled
restoration on it. Yeah, the restoration one's very good. Did you watch it on Shudder?
Yeah, that was beautiful.
Pretty sure it's the Scream Factory re-release.
It looked so good. So then when the violence gets, when dude gets an axe in his head or wherever, it's like, oh shit, because you forget, like, it's just a mystery, but you forget it. The mystery is people get murdered, and then somebody gets murdered, and you're like, God damn, that took me by surprise, because it sucks you in with just the regular drama.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. All right, let's give this guy a grade. All right, Christopher, do you recommend, and what is your grade for Tenebrae?
All right, I am going to recommend this. This would probably be maybe number 3 or 4 or 5 if I did a list of my favorite ones. So it's up there, but it's not my complete favorite, which is fine. Who cares, right? So I'm going to give this an A-. I don't think I graded it this high last time, but seeing the rest of them in the genre, I can grade this appropriately now. But also the fact that it holds up 10 years after we recorded it in my head, that's a decent sign of a well-made movie that'll like, it'll still be fresh, 20 years from now. Unless murder doesn't exist anymore, then that would be weird. But whatever. So yeah, I'll give it A-. And this is, if you're into these, this should be one of the first 5 you watch, I think.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. Obviously, it's no secret that I'm a huge fan of the classic Argento and the classic Italian stuff. It's really one of the main reasons I started the show, is to be able to talk about movies like this. So I love it, and I think it's very, very well done. Inferno aside, like, pretty much everything he did up to this point was, an A. Suspiria is still one of my favorite horror films of all times. And this is not, really not far off. Everything in it works. The women are beautiful. The music is great. The murders are grisly. The story works. It's not too outlandish. So yeah, I'm going to go with an A- also. I recommend. The version that is on Shudder looks amazing. They did a really great restoration of it. I'm pretty sure it's Scream Factory's restoration. That's the most recent one. That's the 4K one. So there you go.
Nice.
So, Donnie, thank you very much, my friend. These were 2 good movies to be able to go back and revisit.
Yeah. When we were, Rip was watching the beginning of this with me, and we were talking about how clear it looked for being from so long ago. And then I said, oh, you should see the colors in this one. And I put on the trailer for Suspiria, and I realized I saw that on cable when I was like 10 years old, and I've never gone back to it as far as I can remember.
Really?
Yeah. So
interesting.
I'm going to get the highest, bit rate or whatever 4K copy I can find, and we're going to sit down and finally watch that, because she saw some of the trailer, and her first reaction to the colors of the barbed wire, or it's regular wire, the wire room, and then the ceiling and the floor in that one main room. She said, "Oh, holy shit."
It still holds up to this day.
It's beautiful. It's there's no time period for it because of the building. It just takes it right out. And it's like in Europe, you can walk into buildings that are, 600 years old and forget where you are. So yeah, totally believable. I liked it. I like that. Not that I liked it. I got to watch it again, but I know it made me feel really weird when I was little, because I didn't know they were those kind of movies. Italian? No, I don't know. I'm kidding.
Right. Okay, let's move on to Joe, who is finishing up the Poison Ivy series in a film that I didn't even know existed, a 2008 made-for-television erotic thriller called Poison Ivy: The Secret Society.
Oh, man.
So let's see here.
Well, hello, Bill. Hello, Chris, and hello, OTC Nation. It's your boy Joe here, and this week, Bill took me to where the skulls meets just a lifetime of torment. A lifetime. That joke will come into play in a second. Bill made me watch Poison Ivy: The Secret Society. Poison Ivy 3 was made in 1997. This was made in 2008. I don't know what's more surprising, that they didn't crank out 1 or 2 more of these each year and just tack on the name of an only kind of successful film, Or that after 11 years, anyone at all went, you know what will sell this hunk of fuck we just made? Call it a Poison Ivy film.
There you go.
Like, motherfucker, nobody asked for this. Oh, God, what if they did? Did the unwashed masses ask for this? And I just keep my circle so small that I'm out of touch with the idiocracy, and they bombarded the studio with desperately horny requests for another Poison Ivy film? Only Jason Herreno, director of this probable turd, can answer that question. Oh, no. Oh, no. I'm on the wiki to look up the director's name, and Bill, what have you done to me?
Oh, no.
I have no idea.
I thought we were
Dave
cool.
DeFalco?
Bill, could you do me a favor and do a quick search of Poison Ivy, The Secret Society on Wikipedia?
Okay.
Pause me if you need to. I'd ask you to read the small paragraph that precedes the wiki article, and go ahead and linger on the last sentence that starts with, the film premiered on.
Yes.
I'll wait.
The film premiered on Lifetime on July 27th, 2008.
There you go.
Am I unpaused?
Yes.
I'm back?
Yes.
Okay, good. Bill, you son of a bitch.
I didn't know.
I know that you didn't know that you would be making me watch a fucking Lifetime made-for-TV movie that rips off both Poison Ivy, barely, and The Skulls, a lot. And probably won't have boobs, and might have Meredith Baxter Burney in it. But here I sit, about to hit play on this, and I'm about as fake mad as I've ever been doing a segment on the show.
I know.
I used to think my time had meaning and value. Hitting play now. So, Drew Barrymore was the OG Ivy, and turns out the only fucking Ivy over one actual movie. 2 straight-to-video flicks, I'm sure disappointed many a teen boy who rented them, thinking that he was going to see something. And this motherfucking Lifetime movie. Alyssa Milano was Lily in PI 2. Jamie Presley was Violet in PI 3. And in this one, it's like every other girl has a fucking flower name. So much so that the main baddie girl is named Azalea.
Of course.
We
Terrible
can,
rappers
we can
aside.
thank George O'Keefe for that.
Like, I don't even have a joke here. That's like one step shy of naming your daughter Coreopsis. Oh, there we go. Not my best work, but I got there. Daisy Brooks is our Mary Sue. She's an Iowa farm girl who goes to the big Ivy League college. Get it? Ivy
Yes.
League.
I was trying not
that's
to.
why
but
It's a
thank
secret
you.
society named the Ivies. Get it?
Yeah.
Yep.
This isn't the Skulls with
Azalea
women.
Badname is the head of the Ivies, and the reason they want her to join and how they reveal characters and their motivations is all about as subtle as The Undertaker's entrance at WrestleMania 20.
Okay, so
Speaking
sort
of
of subtle.
WrestleMania 20, do you remember that terrible storyline with Chris Jericho and Christian and Trish Stratus? Yeah. We all, barely.
Sure.
The
I'll say yes.
story in this tuna salad and peanut butter sandwich of a movie makes that story look like The Princess Bride by comparison.
Oof.
The Ivies get her to join them by fucking with her. They get her student loan frozen and all sorts of shit. And instead of making a call to the bank and sending an email and going about things the right way, or just leaving when she realizes that, like, everybody here is a rich prick who sucks, she joins a secret sorority society full of women who have a collective IQ just a wee bit higher than one of my chickens. Trust me when I say they are barely smart enough to keep themselves alive by remembering to breathe. I mean, fuck, this band of boobs can't even recite dialogue while sounding like a human being. And if you think I'm kidding, watch this thing.
I'm watching
this whole
the
movie is
trailer right now.
predicated on the whole rich people are a different kind of motherfucker than the average motherfucker. And I'm sorry, Lifetime, but if I want to see that movie, I will pop in my copy of Brian Usna's Society.
Yeah.
Which is a dramatically better film. Sadly, Poison Ivy 4 is missing someone with a face coming out of their butt. Would have been better if it had. But it's also written in that way that says that rich people aren't really all this devious and scheming and self-centered. And I'm like, have you ever met a rich person? They are absolutely like that. I think I figured this
proof you have.
Whoever produced this had a niece growing up in like Mudlick, Kentucky in a trailer park. And this is what she thinks rich people do. And they just let her write it.
There you go. That's a good
Like they all scheme against each other instead of the middle class students. They see the pretty girl from farmland, Iowa, and they all want her. And for some reason, nobody needs to study or write papers. They just fuck and party and talk about their personal shit with anybody who will listen. It's infuriating. Let's cut to the end. This is almost over. 2 quick things. 1, if you were a fan of the super melodramatic soap opera style shows from the WB and the CW in the late 90s and the early aughts, this shit will be so far up your alley. It's ridiculous. You'll need a colonoscopy. It's ridiculous. 2, a lot of this centers around Greg Evigan. That's right. Greg Evigan.
My 2 dads.
Teaching a poli-sci class. And the bits of lectures we get at this advanced Ivy League college course sound like a 6th grade civics class.
Well, I mean, that's who you had to write it.
One of them literally ends like the scene opens with him finishing up his lecture. And one of my 2 dads says, and that's why the government has checks and balances. This is like an advanced college level poli-sci course. They know what checks and balances are there for.
Do they?
Too bad we don't currently, but that's a whole nother thing. That would be like me walking into a union welding shop, finding the guy who's like that 30-year master journeyman welder, tapping him on the shoulder, and he turns around and I say to him, hey, I'm going to tell you how to stick metal to other metal with fire.
Did you know you could do that?
You the details, but the climax of this thing is predicated upon one of those old, like mid 2000s digital voice recorders. And it survives a 5-minute fight between 2 girls who were clearly never taught how to work a fight in a fucking swimming pool.
Okay.
It survives the fight in the swimming pool. I feel like this lowered my IQ by at least 10 points. It was fucking abysmal. I guess if you get a group of people together and you have a couple drinks or a couple of smokes, you might enjoy it on that level. But other than that, just fucking here's the thing. The good. I thought, being a Lifetime movie, that this would be a skinless 90 minutes. And there was a fair amount of softcore sex and nudity.
All right.
Poor Greg Evigan gets ridden cowgirl on his college professor desk by a girl that's maybe half his age at best, and she looked like she was trying to get the best 8 seconds at the Amarillo County Fair, and he looked like he was in genuine pain. Yes, that is still the good, because it was hilarious. It was the only genuine laugh I had in this entire shitfest of a movie. The bad. All the Poison Ivy films were poorly written. Every single one of them. But this one takes the cake, that cake that someone dropped on my garage floor after I had my chickens in here for a few hours the other night because we had a small tornado. That's beside the point. Chickens care about a lot, but where they shit is nowhere on that list. Poison Ivy 4 is not quite so bad it's good, but I didn't hate watching it.
Interesting.
I hate watched it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
Still gets a D+ though. Bill and I have already talked, and I'll be back next week with the Mummy franchise from the aughts, not the old school black and white ones, but the Brendan Fraser ones.
Okay.
And I'll be back with a movie that I remember absolutely loving 26 years ago. Until then, I hope you don't feel as old as I just did, realizing that The Mummy was 26 years ago.
Right? Yeah.
Be good, everyone.
Thank you very much, Joe. When we were discussing the Mummy series, one thing that we could agree on that is whether they will hold up or not is not as important as Rachel Weisz will still look incredible.
Yeah, that is true.
That is true. Speaking of things that are also true, Scott is back this week. Let's see what he's got to say.
All right.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Holy Shit. I'm Ann Hutchinson.
Tell me, Ann Hutchinson, what would Ann Hutchinson do in an Ann Hutchinson situation?
Change my name, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
With Reverend Scott.
Everybody has their own thing.
I'm really into runny noses.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Hey there, Bill and Chris. This is Reverend Scott.
He's like just a cool guy.
I appreciate that, Chris. So anyway, welcome to Holy Shit. What's up?
Not much.
Me either. Although I did find time to squeeze in a new movie last weekend. A little A24 distributed horror comedy that I like to call Death of a Unicorn. First and foremost, I did my best to try to avoid trailers, reviews, and Rotten Tomatoes scores before seeing this.
First and foremost, I'm sleepy.
Okay, let's jump right into this. We start out in the car, driving through some rather large wooded area with the mountains off in the distance. Elliot, played by Paul Rudd, is with his daughter Ridley, played by Jenna Ortega. Ridley is supposed to be college age, but maybe is just a freshman. She's like old enough to be out of the house for a while, but young enough to still have issues with acne. We instantly realize that this father-daughter relationship is not so great. Elliot's wife, Ridley's mother, has somewhat recently died, and they have strayed apart more because of it. But right now, Elliot wants Ripley to at least pretend to enjoy his company as they go visit the estate of Elliot's boss, Odell Leopold, a man that, if Elliot plays his cards right during this trip, this will end up getting Elliot set up with the company for life. But they're running kind of late, so Elliot decides to floor it, and through the fog and the road jumps an animal. Elliot slams right into it with the car, leaving it bloody on the ground behind them. It looks kind of like a small horse, except for that one pointy, horny exception on its forehead. Ridley wants to help the animal as it kind of sits there barely breathing and bleeding, while Elliot is more like,
yeah, that makes sense. All right, I get that, but we're going to fix this.
While Elliot is kind of searching around in the back of his SUV for something to help, Ridley touches the horn as it glows, and she sees like an acid trip galaxy of visions. Her eyes turn purple and glowing. And right when the vision is just about at its most intense,
bam! Face full of goo.
Elliot smashes the unicorn in the head with a tire iron, spraying purple blood all over his face and Ridley's face. And I gotta admit, it's kind of jarring to see Paul Rudd trying to kill an animal, even if he thought it was a mercy killing.
True.
So anyway, he throws a dead unicorn in the back of his SUV, and off to the boss's estate they go. When they arrive at this ridiculous house, we meet his stupid, rich, completely out of touch with reality family. Odell, his wife Belinda, and their son Shepard. Belinda is played by Tia Leone, and she's like the typical rich housewife where she's always talking about everything she's accomplished, even though she hasn't really done anything, and she's proudly talking about dinner tonight that is her special recipe that, someone else is going to be preparing for them. And then there's Shepard, played by Will Poulter, and he instantly becomes the highlight of this movie. He's overly confident about everything, constantly giving his opinion despite knowing nothing about the subject. He's always drinking or going into the hot tub or talking about some hobby or activity that he started but obviously never finished. And when he's not acting like a spoiled ass, he's inconveniencing their butler Griff, always making a point to mention how Griff doesn't mind doing that, no matter what the fucking stupid thing is that he's asking for. And then we get to see Griff's face, which is always priceless. Shepard is a character that steals every scene he's in with his narcissism and self-centeredness, and while he's despicable, he's also quite hilarious.
I hated it, but I also kind of loved it, and I'm not sure how I feel.
And you just get the feeling that if there's a substance you can consume, snort, or inject, Shepard has probably tried it.
Drugs.
Yes. Most of, if not all of them.
That's why I don't get to do any, because he used all mine.
We find that Odell is very sick. He has cancer. I think it was a brain tumor. And Elliot is assisting him with all his final affairs, and likely will be able to take on a much larger role in the company after Odell's passing. That's assuming Ridley is able to play nice and show that there's a strong bond between her and her father, Elliot, even if it doesn't really exist. So Elliot is pretty insistent that they at least pretend.
That's not so bad.
Well, you say that, but then things get a little complicated. First, Ridley notices that her acne, where the purple blood hit her face, has disappeared. She rubs some more of the blood off of her shirt onto her other cheek and watches that acne disappear as well. Elliot puts on his reading glasses to look at some documents, only to realize he doesn't need them anymore. The blood kind of got in his eyes some and fixed his whole vision. Then there's this loud banging outside, coming from Elliot's SUV that he rented. The unicorn isn't dead.
Oh, good. You can make more
blood. And they see the horn. It's obviously not a horse.
Oh, wow. This is something special.
Oh, 100%.
Then the security lady shoots it in the head.
Why? Your guess is as good as mine.
It doesn't take long for the whole Leopold family to find out that this unicorn has special healing properties, and they decide, we have a built-in lab here and some lab rats. Let's get to testing this bad boy. They start harvesting blood, shaving off parts of the horn, doing more research. Meanwhile, Ridley is doing her own research. She noticed that some of the really old tapestries that she saw when she was at the museum with her mom years ago kind of portrayed a story of men catching a unicorn. This is from many centuries ago, so people just kind of wrote it off as being just a myth or a story. But now that she knows unicorns are actually real, she's starting to put a little more faith into how this story goes. And in the story, they try to harvest its power, and they are all eventually horribly murdered. But after trying to explain the risks of keeping this baby unicorn in their estate and testing on it, the Leopolds, with obvious dollar signs in their eyes, quickly tell her that that's nonsense. That's an old tapestry. No one gives a shit about that. All they can think about is basically selling this stuff to other rich people and essentially becoming immortal themselves. And meanwhile, Shepard is off snorting some unicorn horn powder.
That shit's great.
Yeah.
More of that.
Yeah, that was fun.
Ridley feels not only concerned about the consequences of this, but also feels rejected by her dad, who has been backing up the Leopolds instead of his own daughter. While you might understand why he's doing it in regards to his need to try and progress his career, it also just kind of makes you feel like shit and see Elliot as more of a shitty person because of it. And to be honest, Elliot may want to reconsider that stance soon, because off in the distance, under a sky that looks like a purple version of the Northern Lights, are sounds of a very mad unicorn parent. A very large, very strong, magical, pissed off parent with a very large horn.
That's really bad, and I like it.
Before you know it, the estate is being attacked, and people are being impaled, guts are falling out, others are getting ripped in half and trampled. You definitely get the vibe of,
you killed my master, prepare to die. There
only, it's a parent over a baby. I won't go too much more into detail on the things that happen from here. There's a few shocking moments and some surprises. I mean, you should have a vague idea of what you're getting into with a movie about magical unicorns and gore.
So, that's already kind of ridiculous.
There's some revelations you might not expect, and even the things that happen that you probably could predict are done in a way that's still pretty entertaining. The movie in the center, kind of like the second act area, isn't the most exciting, but it certainly picks up fast in the third act.
This is not that boring.
No, not at all.
This definitely falls under a dark comedy. The cynical, sarcastic tone is pretty consistent throughout the movie, especially when it comes to the son Shepard.
Nobody's going to compliment him on that, but I will, because I like that kind of stuff.
I was pretty impressed with the gore effects and the creature effects. It looked like a combination of practical and CG and some puppetry and even some real-life horses and such. It was done pretty well. I just guess my main issue is with Paul Rudd and how he just kind of feels wasted in this movie. He's not often given an opportunity to really be funny. He's not really overly sympathetic either. I mean, several times he could have stood up for his daughter, but instead keeps siding with the awful rich family. And by the time they try and redeem his character, I almost feel like it was too late. I got to the point that if it looked like he might be killed by a large unicorn, I would think to myself,
yeah, so go ahead.
The end was pretty satisfying overall. It was just the middle that seemed like it was a bit weaker for me. At 107 minutes, this was nearing too long for a comedy range, but there's a few things near the end that extend the film in a good way.
They could have ended it there. They could have ended it there. They could have ended it there. But they do it in a way where you're like, all right, well, what are they going to do next? And I'm okay with that.
So overall, I do recommend Death of a Unicorn. Not necessarily in the theater, maybe just a streaming watch, but it's worth a watch nonetheless. But when you compare it to other like sarcastic dark comedies like The Companion or The Monkey, it doesn't quite live up to their standards. So overall, I give Death of a Unicorn a B-. Well, I think that's plenty for this week. You've already gotten more than you deserved. And I've already given you your new opinion of a film. And I got to hear some good reviews last week, too. The Outlaw Johnny Black sounds like something that I'll definitely watch. Just don't get too excited about it because it's not quite as good as Black Dynamite.
Still funny.
Solid B review. And Sister Tempest was an interesting review because I love when there's something super pretentious, enough so that it kind of splits your reviews.
Yeah.
We say the term weird for the sake of weird on here a lot. And this is one of those films.
So that deserves a B+. So I guess that just leaves Strange Darling and Presents for you to review next week, right? Right? Isn't that what you said?
I don't know why I said that.
So until the next time you get a unicorn horn impaled through your chest, peace and love, guys. Outside the cinema, precise, confident movie reviews for over 17 years.
What are you talking about?
Well, I don't know what I'm saying.
Okay. All right. It's another show.
Yep.
Another week. Thank you very much to Donnie for giving us the movies this week from the Patreon, patreon.com/outside the cinema if you would like to support independent podcasting. You can follow Chris and I on different places at OTC Bill, at Cthulhu. We're all over the place. I don't know. Just find us, whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah. I don't know what we're doing next week. Chris and I are going to figure that out in a couple minutes. And then, yeah, we'll be back at it again like we normally are.
Yeah.
So cool. Thanks for hanging out, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.